Hello, my name is Connor, and welcome to my TED Talk. Previously, I made a timeline on the history of recycling, and I had the chance to interview both my grandfather and my mother, and some of the things they said correlated with events on my timeline. So, I interviewed my mother first, and she mentioned that when she was growing up, Earth Day was brand new. She grew up in the 70s. Um, at her school, they would go around and pick up trash, and they would even plant a tree to in correlation to global warming. So that was what they did for Earth Day. Now my grandfather, he grew up way before Earth Day was founded, so there was no real correlation with him. But with my mother, she um, learned about Earth Day in school. Now for both my mother and my grandfather, they discussed the recycling of aluminum cans, paper, um, both different like cans and paper were separated into different buckets, and they would be recycled and picked up. Um, can Recycling cans was on the rise. Even during my grandfather's time, in my mother's time, paper and other products started to get on the rise as well. Um, in school, they were my mother was taught about it a little bit, not much. My grandfather was also really not taught about it, but um, both reported an increase in recycling, which correlates with my timeline because on my timeline, as time goes by in the 1900s and the 2000s, recycling increases, and in 1995, Americans recycled a total of 47.6 billion soft drink containers, which which correlates with my timeline and my interviews because as the years went by, more people started to recycle containers and different things. As a result, making the world a better place. Now, um, if we're talking about uh, if we're talking about paper, my mother reported that um, her in her town, her and my grandfather both grew up in Pittman. They reported in their town that with paper and products like those, you would have to recycle them, and they would be checked by inspectors, and if they found that you were recycling things you weren't supposed to, you would get fined for it. So that was a way to enforce recycling. And as the 1900s went by, recycling was on the rise a lot. So with um, as my mother became a young adult, newspapers and paper and cans and all that were separated. They were checked. They would be picked up and they would be recycled. So to become a better recycler, there are some things you can do to help you. Um, One of them is by paying attention to what you throw in the recycling cans. If you put anything that's not paper or cans or plastic bottles or cardboard or any of that, if there's anything that's not one of those, don't put it in the recycling bucket because that's not what you want to put in there. You can't recycle anything that's not cans or paper or cardboard or any of that. So pay attention to what you put in the cardboard. Pay attention to what you put in the recycling bins. Now, you can also make it a habit because I know people can get lazy with it. I've seen it, and both my mother and my grandfather have seen it too. So, make it a habit. Pay attention to what you put in the recycling bins. Pay attention to pay attention to what you buy because if you think about reusing things more than wasting them, because if you buy things that can be reused, it can be better for the economy too. Now, another thing you can do is learn more about Earth Day, because that's a big thing with recycling. Earth Day can teach you a lot about recycling, because it's a national day all about recycling, reusable items, taking care of the earth we live on, and that can teach you more about recycling. It can also help you make it a habit as well. So yeah, but as a closing statement, both my mother and my grandfather um, can relate to events on this timeline, with aluminum can recycling becoming a thing, both even when my grandfather was alive to when my mother was alive. That was a big thing. The celebration of Earth Day, where my mother learned about it in school, they would go around and pick up trash, and also through the recycling of paper and cardboard and other items that would be on the rise. Um, they would be fined didn't if they didn't cooperate with how recycling worked, if they put items that they weren't supposed to in the bins. So that's my TED talk about um how two interviews from people in my family, from my family members, correlate with events on my recycling timeline and with the history of recycling. So thank you for coming to my TED Talk, and I will see you next time. Thank you.